What is a scary, unsettling fact about you? Comment 1. I killed someone in self-defense, went through the entire court process with his family sobbing hysterically and never felt a single emotion about it, and I'm a pretty emotional guy. Reply, if you're okay with sharing, what caused you to act in self-defense? OP reply, attempted carjacking in East St. Louis. I was picking up my 6-year-old daughter from dance. Had my window down at a stoplight at night and was hit in the mouth, side of face by a young man and his firearm and pulled out of my car. The work I do requires me to be armed and I had just gotten off shift. I put 6 rounds into the driver door as he closed it and pulled him out. If my daughter hadn't been in the back, I would have just let it go. He was 17 and from a very poor area. I don't fault him. Comment 2. This is a weird one, but I promise you, no bullshit. I had a metal screw roughly 1.5 inches long stuck in my right lung from age 2 to 17. I must have put it in my mouth as a toddler and it got in there somehow. Anyway, the unsettling bit is that I always knew there was something seriously wrong with my body, because my whole life I would have instances in which I coughed uncontrollably, many times coughing up blood. Sometimes a little, sometimes a lot. But I never told anyone. Dad was neglectful and mom was always working, so it was relatively easy to hide. If it happened at school, I'd excuse myself to the restroom until it stopped. No one ever showed concern those 15 years, so I guess I kept it to myself well enough. I never told anyone, because even as a small child I was very unhappy with life and wanted it to be over. I guess I figured my mystery illness would get me eventually, so I kept it a secret so I wouldn't get treated. It all came to a head at 17 when playing ball at the park with my parents, siblings, and some friends. I got a decent hit and ran around the bases when I started coughing. After sitting back down I tried to hold it in but I couldn't, and this time it was too bloody to hide and no bathroom to go to. So my step-uncle noticed after a minute or two, everyone is crowded around me while I'm coughing up a shitload of blood in and around a trash can. My little brother told me after that they actually sent guys in hazmat suits to clean it up because they didn't know if whatever was wrong with me was contagious. But anyway, got to the hospital and got the x-ray which showed the screw lit up like Christmas and posed over my rib cage. Doctor guy just went, well, there's your problem. I guess he was trying to lighten the mood since everyone was understandably freaking the fuck out. 2 weeks of surgery, 3 total, and it was out. I still have breathing issues, but the cough is gone now. I made the screw into a necklace which I wear sometimes because I find it oddly comforting to be reminded of my own mortality. I know that's weird, but it's just sort of how I am all things considered. I never told my family I knew there was something wrong with me, because telling them would mean admitting to them that I wanted to die the whole time. I still struggle with mental health crap for this and many other reasons I won't get into, but things are a lot easier than they used to be. But anyway, if you actually took the time to read about my weird little life, I appreciate your time and hope your day is pleasant. Comment 3. Not sure if it's scary, but my dad overdosed on heroin and died. I probably could have saved him. I went downstairs at like 1 a.m. to get a drink and saw the bathroom door closed with the light on. I thought about pounding on the door to scare him, which is something I would do to mess with him. I walked up to the door, went to knock on it, but thought to myself, nah, don't mess with him. And I walked away. Woke up later finding out he was dead from an OD. Comment 4. A third of my body is covered in burn scars. When I was 15, I was in a forest area near my school with several friends. We would go here often after school to talk and hang out before going home for supper. It was also common for us on colder days to start a small fire to keep warm. Netherlands is a very wet country, so there is rarely a fear of a fire getting out of hand. However, the boys are another story. Boys always act dumb around fire. One time when we were in the woods, a boy who had been playing with the fire had lit a stick and was walking around with it like a torch. Somehow the stick or ember fell onto my school bag and caught fire. This also caught my jacket, hair, and skirt on fire. The backpack began to melt from the fire and drip onto my clothes. Everyone panicked and by instinct I ran back to the school. Running only made the fire worse. I was seen by an adult, a teacher I think, and I was put on the ground and the fire was put out. But much damage had been done already. I was taken towards the hospital and the school called my parents. I was burned from the top of my head down onto the top of my leg just above my knee. Much of my hair on one side of my head was burned away, but because hair burns quickly there was little damage to my face, more like a bad sunburn, except for on my neck and along my jawbone where my jacket and backpack burned. My legs were mostly okay too, as the skirt I was wearing was wool and did not burn easily and was away from my legs. My right arm and body were not as well off. Where the jacket was and where the backpack was had burned the most and had melted like hot plastic because they were synthetic material. I was in hospital for many weeks and had many surgeries over the span of my life to help the skin grow and to graft skin from my legs onto parts of my chest and underarm that were the most damaged. If I wear jeans and a long sleeve shirt, you cannot tell that I have any scars other than the line of scars that go up my neck on one side. Many times I can hide those scars with makeup. Comment 5. Growing up I had a recurring nightmare set in my grandparents' backyard looking at the back of their house. There was just something off about the house, something mildly sinister. I dreamt this over and over, many times over the years. In 2018, my dad went into the backyard to that spot and killed himself. I haven't had the backyard dream since. Comment 6. From ages 6 to 14, I spent all of my time in a pitch black, cold and locked basement, only leaving for school and never letting anyone know. Reply, I need background information on this, why and why. OP reply, where to start? When I was 6, my sister and I discovered that my dad was fucking my mom's sister. My dad proceeded to punch out my mom when she found out, knocking out some of her teeth. I made the mistake of reporting the event to my teachers the next day. Police go to my dad's work. Dad comes home, pissed off at me for shaming the family. Proceeds to strangle me into unconsciousness. Wake up in the basement, told I can come out when I learn to respect my dad. My only company was a Bible and some school books. I read the Bible every day and prayed for the abuse to stop. Not once did God answer. Reply, I had a similar experience. From 7 minutes 11 I was locked in my room or the basement, and from 11 minutes 17 I was locked in my room. Not allowed to go out besides school, not allowed to get a job, got physically abused at home, and my main job was to watch my half-sister. I tried going for a walk once when I was 16 and my stepdad smashed my hand into a door and broke my knuckle before I made it out. Sorry you were locked up, that shit is detrimental in so many ways. I'm trying to get over it, but all my motivation and will to do anything involving leaving the house has died. Comment 7. My grandfather was murdered on the res by a skinhead dude who serial murdered native people and dropped them in the wilderness. It took them years to catch him. I was at his execution in another state. He deserved worse than falling asleep peacefully. I was a child mule in Detroit for 3 years. I made more money in 3 years than most people will see in a decade. I did some pretty scary stuff that I won't get into here that was under coercion. I'm not proud of it. It's scary what I've seen dudes do over money. I bought my mom a house because her husband was on oxys and gambled her life savings. Made sure my brother and sisters ate. Cash in my mom's glove box every week with a spare key. No questions, no answers. I dipped when stuff got real pressured and scary for me to be promoted. I killed a man outside a bar in the defense of another person. The whole bar saw him drag his girlfriend out by the arm and no one called the police or followed. I was just there for dinner and not drinking. I had a legal piece in the car. I holstered up and went looking. Heard screaming from behind the gated dumpster. She was begging. His pants were down. I yelled at him to freeze. I yelled at him to lay down. He pulled his pants up and he had a knife in his hand. The girl was bleeding. He charged me and I emptied a mag into them as soon as he wasn't in front of her. Broke my pistol down, put it on the pavement and called for the cops and an ambulance. Got arrested but she testified and he was on camera charging me with a big fucking boot knife. I didn't get charged because she was stabbed, bleeding, being assaulted, and he charged at me with a deadly weapon. I still think about it sometimes. I don't regret it. That was about 10 years ago. My wife and I got married 9 years ago. I've never told her. As far as she knows, I have a close female friend that lives in Alabama. It's not something that comes up in casual conversation. Who, by the way, new girlfriend. I killed a dude. No, I don't think it was necessary to talk about. I went to therapy and stayed quiet. That girl emails me every once in a while. She's healed, married, and happy. I visited her in the hospital for a while till her parents got here from Alabama. I went to her wedding a couple years ago. It was beautiful. Nice dude. I don't bother her. Her parents tried to give me some money, but I felt really fucking greasy about taking it, so I didn't. Kinda wish I had lately, but still glad I didn't. No one knows I'm on Reddit, or I genuinely wouldn't say any of this here. I said it in some random group chats during therapy to get it out, and haven't really mentioned it until now, honestly. Thanks for asking the right question, I guess. I appreciate the platform. Comment 8. My dog and my mother died in the same year. I was so devastated when my dog passed. That kind of pain didn't even touch the pain of losing my mom, partially because she had given up on me in life years before she died. She drank herself to death and got sepsis. My dad killed himself in 2. I'm 38 now. I miss them. I miss my dog more. She was always there for me through so much illness and loneliness and pain. She was my best friend. RIP. Reply, same boat. I've had family die and I didn't shed a tear. I always thought that was weird. When my cat died recently, the grief was so strong that it affected me physically. I felt literal pain, I was cold and felt ill. I had no idea that was a thing. I always thought it only hurts emotionally. Even though it's been a few months, I also can't really talk about it too much. I also get choked up. I don't see that improving anytime soon. I think about my cat every day, but sadly it's always about how I saw her last, in a small room hooked up to the IV, when she was being put to sleep after struggling. I guess in a way I never left that room. OP reply, I'm so sorry. I know that exact feeling. I rushed into the vet hospital back room just in time to hear that she had no heartbeat. I can't say it gets any less painful exactly. I saw a thing once that represented it like the pain staying the same size but the vessel holding it get bigger over time. Or another representation that the pain doesn't lessen, but the number of hits you get become fewer over time. For me it's something like that. I also got 2 kittens that have helped me immensely. They took my mind off it and gave me something to snuggle. Heaven help me when they pass though ... It's a vicious cycle. Reply, that makes sense to me. I lost 3 dogs in 4 years, one of which was my sole dog. I still grieve them. My dad died last summer and I've only cried a couple of times. I loved my dad and he was a good father for the most part, but I think my mom's life might have been a lot better if she'd never married him. That plus the absolute exhaustion of caring for someone who has brain cancer have made it really hard to process. My love for my dogs was pure and uncomplicated. My love for my dad was human and my feelings are a mess. Much easier to feel the pain of losing my dogs. Reply, I understand this. My dad is currently in the ICU, critical, and has about 50/50 chance of making it. The dread I feel is for if he comes out the other side and recovers, not that he declines. I feel like a bad person for it, but he has made my life a living hell and no one really in my family knows, so I have to basically pretend I'm upset about this. But when I look at him in the bed with all the tubes and such, I feel nothing. I just want him gone. I'm an extremely empathetic and caring person. I know this much, so feeling like that is kind of upsetting to me. The thing that upsets me the most is seeing my grandma hurt, but I couldn't give less of a shit about my dad. Sometimes when he is conscious then goes back to sleep, I feel kind of good knowing he's hurting and scared. God knows he made me feel that way x100 for years on end. Reply, I'm trying to recover from the loss of my dog almost a year ago. Last year, my uncle and aunt died and then I learned that my mom has dementia. I didn't feel a thing about their deaths. As for my mom, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to feel beside annoyance, it's just another problem. When I lost my job from not finding the strength to work anymore, it felt like a drop of water in an ocean of pain because nothing really matters while I'm still grieving my dog. He was my best friend, sports coach, and therapist. I basically don't have a life anymore since everything I liked reminds me of him. Comment 9. When I was 11, I witnessed my stepdad attack my mom. I was in my room and heard my mom scream, so I left my room to see what happened. When I stepped into the hallway, I could see partly into the kitchen and she was standing with her back up against the corner of the countertop with a terrible look on her face and a swelling cheek. My stepdad was about 5 feet away with 3 long bleeding scratches down his cheek from where she retaliated. I guess I didn't know how to react, so I just turned around and went back to my room. That weekend I spent Friday night at my best friend's house. I knew his older brother had a .38 Chiefs special revolver in a hidden drawer he had built under his waterbed frame. Before I left, I stuffed the gun into my rolled up sleeping bag. I chickened out that first night, but Sunday night, around 2-3 a.m. I think, I took the revolver into their room and woke him up by jamming it under his chin. He woke up immediately and kind of reactively had pulled his head back away from the barrel. I pushed it harder into his throat and said something like, "Don't ever hurt my mom again or I'll kill you." I don't remember exactly what I said. I do remember feeling like the world was spinning 1,000 miles per hour around me and that I was weightless. I don't remember anything after saying that to them until I was back in my room. I dropped the gun on the floor and burst into the hardest sobbing I have ever experienced. Seemed like it lasted for hours. I don't know how long I actually cried, but when I finally stopped I was drenched in sweat, tears down my entire front side. I put the gun in my backpack and snuck it back into that drawer under the waterbed 2 or 3 days later, the next time I was at my friend's house. Not a word was ever said about what I did by me or my stepdad, but as far as I know he never touched my mom again. They divorced 3 or 4 years later. I ran into my friend's brother at a bar about 10 years later and I told him about borrowing his gun thinking he would just laugh it off as me telling drunk bar lies. He did not. He believed me completely, even stated that sometimes when I was at their house I would make little comments that his family understood to mean that my home life wasn't great. He's a big biker type guy, and he just grabbed me, pulling me off the bar stool, and hugged me for like 5 straight minutes. He was a great dude. This all sounds overdramatic after reading it back to myself, but it's written exactly as I remember it. Thanks for the chance to share this. Until now, my friend's brother and my stepdad were the only others who knew about it.